Welcome to another edition of On the Agenda. I'm City Manager Bill Osborne, and today we will be looking at my top 10 list. This is what I consider to be the top 10 events in the City of Douglasville government in calendar 2010, and I hope you will join me as we run through these events. Before I start that countdown, let me remind you of what we had in 2009. Number 10 was economic development, with the focus on the forward movement of the City of Douglasville's Economic Development Authority. Number 9, planning for a new conference center in the downtown area. Number 8, a change in leadership in the police department with Chris Womack becoming our new police chief. Number 7, the start of renovation and reconstruction of Hunter Park. Number 6, the economy, in 2 words, not good. Number 5, approval by the voters in a county-wide SPLOSH referendum to build the new Douglas County Jail and Sheriff's Department. Number 4, start of construction on the city's public safety municipal court building. Number 3, decision by the university system to place a unit here in the city of Douglasville. Number 2, Highway 92. After more than a decade of planning, we began to see coming to a close for that phase of this project. And number 1 last year was the devastating and life-taking floods and heavy rains which hit in September. Now that was 2009. Let's look at 2010. And I'll start the countdown with the City of Douglasville Police Department's Youth Against Violence program, which has attracted statewide interest from public safety officials, after-school programs, and government policymakers, and that's because the Youth Against Violence program has shown some positive results. Deputy Chief Gary Sparks, who has spearheaded this program, says it seeks to educate at-risk young people on issues which can have negative impacts on their lives. The program's main goals are to provide these young people with information and guidance that will help them make the right decision and the right choices and avoid making the wrong decisions and wrong choices. And it includes workshops in the areas of gangs, drugs, violent crimes, sex laws, anger management, teen suicide, and bullying. And in the past, we've had this program to operate out of the Hawthorne Center in Davis Park, Downtown Conference Center. Now, of course, it's in our new Public Safety and Municipal Court building. And it's been received very warmly locally. At the statewide level, the Georgia Chiefs of Police organization gave our police department an award for having what it considered to be the second best new innovative way for police departments to deal with problems involving youth. Of course, we thought we had the best one. And then in January of 2010, the Georgia Municipal Association selected our city as one of 4 cities to present information on what could be done to make cities safer. Deputy Chief Sparks did a great job in presenting that program. One result in 2010 has been a number of cities coming to see how Youth Against Violence operates firsthand. Number 9 on my list, Georgia Highway 92 continues to be very important. Ranked number 2 last year, but now I ranked at number 9 because we didn't have the real momentum changing events in 2010, but we were moving steadily toward where we need to go, working with the Georgia Department of Transportation, Federal Highway Administration, Atlanta Regional Commission, Congressman Scott's office, as well as our engineering firm. We've worked for years, as you know, to try to get the funding and the approvals to go forward with this project, to relocate Highway 92 coming through the middle of Douglasville, to give us our first grade separation crossing at the Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks. And this project then goes northward to connect to current 92 near our northern city limits and then on up into Paulding County. And following a lot of work during the first half of 2010, we had the final public hearing on June 29. And at the end of the year, GDOT was getting ready to do right-of-way acquisition. In fact, had already started contacting people for some early acquisitions. And we think that this project now will move along Final engineering should be starting very soon. We're probably still 3 years away from actual construction because it takes a long, long time for major road projects to move to the construction phase. But with this project now valued at $98 million, we're closer than we've ever been before. Now, number 8 on my list, back in November of 2009, we had the special countywide referendum on approved SPLOST funds to build the new Douglas County Jail and Sheriff's Office. The county government some months ago named this new facility the Adult Detention and Law Enforcement Center. When this was approved, I ranked it as number 5 on the list. Now that they're getting ready to start, I considered that work during calendar 2010 to rank number 8 on my list. This complex, as many of you know, will be built inside the city of Douglasville on county-owned land between I-20 and the Douglas County Courthouse. And this is a major event for Douglasville because not only are city prisoners housed in the county jail, but once this new facility is completed, the current sheriff's office and jail will be moving out from the downtown area. And this building, because it's located inside the city limits, the mayor and the city council said we should exercise our responsibility as we have under state law to do the issuing of the permits and to be responsible for inspections. The county initially objected to that, but then said, if you are going to do that, would you do it at no charge? We felt like, though, that because it would take a lot of our staff time, that we should charge our normal fees, which we have. It's about $250,000. Work is proceeding on this project, and we think that when it's completed that this is going to be a great new addition for Douglasville, Douglas County. Now, last year on my list, I ranked economic development as number 10. This year I moved it up to number 7, and let me tell you why. 2009 was the time in which the City of Douglasville Development Authority was getting started. We had employed Jamie Gilbert to be the executive director, but in 2010, that was the time we were seeing those startup activities produce some results, even though the economy remained very difficult. And I want to talk briefly about 3 areas that the City Development Authority, the CDDA, is focusing on: target industries, adaptive use of existing buildings, and the use of business incentives to bring more jobs to Douglasville. Now, in target industries of the City Development Authority includes advanced manufacturing, healthcare, and information technology. And in 2010, the City Development Authority attracted Medline to expand its operations within the city limits, and this promises to be, from an employment standpoint, the largest industry in the history of Douglasville. Also locating in Douglasville in 2010 through the City Development Authority, their efforts was Mitchell's Specialized Fabrication as an advanced manufacturing industry facility, the Ross Group in the IT area, and Kaiser Permanente in the health area. Adaptive use of existing buildings, we saw this with Georgia Highlands moving into a shopping center on Stewart Parkway, the Douglasville Town Center, as well as Garden Ridge moving into the old-time pottery building on Douglas Boulevard. And CDDA was aggressive with business development activities and tax incentives. City Council in June approved a new city tax abatement policy which allows new and expanding businesses to accelerate their tax savings. And this is a great incentive for attracting new industry, new businesses to our community to bring jobs. Now, Georgia Highlands College last year was one of the stories. In fact, I ranked it number 3. This year I've got it ranked 6, and it's ranked still very high because they moved into their permanent facilities. This was a lot of work that was done by the City Development Authority with the Board of Regents, Georgia Highlands officials to get in our community a branch campus of Georgia Highlands, which has its primary campus in Rome. And they started using some modular units at Chapel Hill High School, but in the summer of 2010 moved into the facilities over on Stewart Parkway, the former Cub Food site. Back on August the 5th, we had a ribbon cutting and official grand opening, and we're joined by officials from the university system, Georgia Highlands, state legislators, local educators, city officials in this momentous occasion. And we're looking forward to Georgia Highlands continuing to grow in our community. We expect them to be on that Stewart Parkway location for about 10 years, and at some point they will move into a more permanent location to be built by the state on land that's being provided by the city of Douglasville. Now, number 5 on my top 10 list was a special event which came on Christmas. And I'm not talking about Santa Claus coming to town. You know, the old standard, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, starts off by, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas just like the ones I used to know. Well, unless you've been around for many, many years, you've never known a white Christmas except maybe for a sprinkling of snow. Certainly nothing like the beautiful snow we had in Christmas of 2010. I hope you had an enjoyable and a safe time. Because of the snow, you may have had to change some of your travel plans. But in the weather that we had at Christmas, as they always do, Greg Roberts and our maintenance department did a great job of trying to get our roads as accessible as possible. Frankly, the snow at Christmas was a lot easier for them to deal with than the snow and ice storm we had early in 2011. Also appreciate the work of our police department. Continues to do great service regardless of what the weather conditions are. I know I'm personally delighted that we have dedicated employees like these men and women who are out regardless of the weather trying to make things as convenient as possible for the public. Now, if you made videos or you take pictures even when a dusting of snow comes, of course, that was a great event with the snow at Christmas in 2010. I jot that down because based on history, it will be a long, long time before we have a repeat of this. For future white Christmases, I'd suggest you may want to try dreaming. Now, number 4 is the Hunter Park's new community center. If you have been by Hunter Park recently or what you've seen on City TV, you know Hunter Park is still a construction zone. We're doing a complete renovation reconstruction of our largest park. Last year when we started this renovation, I ranked it as number 7. This year I'm not going to talk about the overall renovation. I'm just going to focus on the community center, which now has been completed, and I rank that as number 4 on my list for 2010. This is a 16,000 square foot building. It was completed late in calendar 2010. It's a beautiful structure located between Gurley Road and the lake. It will provide a much-needed and long-awaited facility for our citizens to use for meetings, functions of all kinds, different events, recreation activities. This will enable us to expand facilities and activities that we couldn't do in the Ike Owens building. That building, of course, served for many, many years, was torn down a few months ago, and that land is now part of a new ball field complex which is under construction. Just a final note on the new community center. If you go out the back door of the community center, you're looking at the lake and across the lake to the ball fields, but you also can see the train tracks. And we have the loading and unloading for the popular Hunter Park train right there at the new community center. Unfortunately, we're not running the train. Train has been rebuilt. It's ready to roll, but because of the dam which was damaged by those September floods, we still do not have all the approvals from the state and federal government on repairing the dam and making it safe. And until we get that done, we can't have the tracks laid, and until that happens, we can't bring the train back. But we're looking forward to when that may occur. Now, 2010 brought a continuation of tough economic times, and the city's fiscal condition stood up well under that stress. And those two things combined to form number 3 on my top 10 list. Now, because of decreasing property values and the corresponding decline in the tax digest, property tax revenues received by the city of Douglasville in 2010 dropped by about $833,000, and that's approximately 12% of our digest. Revenue reductions were felt also in other areas: sales taxes, occupational licenses, building permits, hotel, motel, occupancy taxes, even sanitation service fees dropped. And all of this, of course, reflected a continued weakening in the local economy, which was consistent, of course, with what we saw on a statewide and a national basis. No sector of the economy in Douglasville was hit harder than the housing industry. Foreclosures were at an all-time high, at least in our lifetimes. Residential building permits were the lowest in many, many years. Let me give you a capsule report on how bad it was in 2010. Countywide, 1 of every 16 homes was in foreclosure. There has been a 90% decline in residential construction in Douglasville, Douglas County since 2006, including a 20% drop between 2009 and 2010. We issued only 14 permits in 2010 for new residential construction inside the city of Douglasville. And obviously such a dramatic downturn impacts virtually every segment of the community. And what we did was we cut the budget for fiscal 2010-2011 by 7% from what it had been for the previous fiscal year. Now, early in calendar 2010, I told all city departments that they had to reduce by 4% the spending plan for 2010-2011 fiscal year. The only exception we made was these 2 new buildings we had, the new Hunter Park Community Center, Public Safety Municipal Court building, being larger than the buildings we were already in. We knew that we would have increased utility costs, but that was the only exceptions we made, and I can tell you that our departments did a great job in reducing the cost to get within those guidelines, and I believe we did this without any reduction in services to the public. Now, we did not need to look at a reduction in force in city government in 2010, largely because a year earlier we had faced this head on, and we cut the size of the city workforce by about 12%. We eliminated 12 vacant positions, and unfortunately had to eliminate 12 positions that were occupied by employees we had at that time. Now, I know a lot of local governments dealt with the drop in revenues by increasing their property tax millage rate. Douglas County Board of Commissioners raised its tax rate from 2009 to 2010 by 1.968 mills. Douglas County Board of Education raised its tax rate from 2009 to 2010 by 2.75 mills. But basically, the city of Douglasville held the line on the property tax millage rate, and for the 7th straight year, the city did not make a change in its tax rate for maintenance and operations. The line was held steady at 3.854 mills. Mayor Thompson and members of the city council said they felt that city government should curtail spending in order to correspond to the lower revenues, just like individual families and small businesses were having to do. They said that's what happens with small businesses and families, and that's what we should do. Kind of as an aside, I would point out that the tax millage rate for 2010, we did have, of course, for the new Public Safety Municipal Court building, that was a general obligation bond issue approved by the voters, and that did have a millage rate of 1.215 mills, so our total millage rate for 2010 was 5.069 mills. Now, number 2 on my top 10 list was a combination of 2 very important road projects in the vicinity of Georgia Highway 5 and Interstate 20. Completion of the Bright Star Road connector and improvements to the Highway 5 Rose Avenue I-20 corridor. 2 years ago when I did my top 10 list, the start of construction on the Bright Star Road connector I ranked as number 3. Now, I did not include it in my top 10 list last year while the road was under construction, but with its completion in 2010, as well as looking at the improvements being made to Rose Avenue, Highway 5, I-20 area, I felt like the combination of those should be put together, a completion of road projects in this area, and I ranked number 2 on my list. Now, more than 10 years ago, a transportation study prepared for the city identified the need for construction of a new parallel road north of side of I-20 between Highway 5 and Bright Star Road. And this would alleviate traffic, the congestion we have there, and the bridge over I-20 on Highway 5, Douglas Boulevard, and it would provide an alternative means for traffic that was trying to be going further south or coming further south, say from the Bill Arp community. And that's the purpose of the Bright Star Road Connector, as well as opening up a whole vacant area that could provide area for new development, new jobs, new economic growth in our community. The Bright Star Road Connector was included as a 2002 SPLOST project, but because of increased construction cost that we had to lay out for the Hospital Drive project, for the Chapel Hill Road projects, for resurfacing, for preliminary engineering and work on Highway 92 and some other projects, we simply didn't have enough money left over from that 2002 SPLOST program to do the Bright Star Road Connector. But the mayor and the city council thought it was so important that we financed this from our city general fund reserves. I'm sure most of you know that the City of Douglasville and the Douglas County Board of Commissioners had a major disagreement concerning the design of how that connector would tie in with Bright Star Road. And because part of that new intersection was located inside the City of Douglasville and part was located in the unincorporated area, each government has control over part of this intersection. Therefore, when the city opened this 4-lane divided Bright Star Road Connector on June the 2nd of 2010, county government moved almost immediately and put concrete barricades up to block the connector at the Bright Star Road area. The city, we strongly objected to this. County said they did it for safety reasons. We felt like that their claims were not justified, but in any event, we were at an impasse, and we worked for almost 20 weeks trying to get that impasse resolved. Finally, we decided it was not going to be resolved, so what we did was we left the concrete barriers in place on the northern lanes, which were in the unincorporated area. We opened the southern lanes, which were inside the City of Douglasville, and began operating the intersection, and it's effectively functioning in that same way now as it was during the latter part of 2010. But it should be noted that when we reopened this intersection, we expressed a willingness to continue to work with the county to try to find a solution. County officials agreed. On October 28th, the elected officials of both governments agreed to a new proposal from the county government that would resolve the problem that we had. We've been working on an intergovernmental agreement. We're working together to get the new intersection constructed, and we are expecting this implementation to occur this spring. Now, as I previously noted, this new connector connects Bright Star Road and Georgia Highway 5, and with the realignment of Rose Avenue at Highway 5, we now have a signalized four-way intersection. And I think this is working very effectively to more safely and more effectively move traffic. This is a Georgia Department of Transportation project, and we had worked with GDOT for several years to try to make this project a reality. We finally got an agreement signed with GDOT to get this done, and our responsibility as a city was to handle and pay for the right-of-way acquisition and the easements, and then GDOT would do the construction. We completed our work using 2002 SPLOST funds, but it appeared that we were not going to be able to move forward with construction because GDOT statewide was having all kinds of financial difficulties and said that they didn't know if they would be able to go forward with this project. Fortunately, our planning director, Michelle Wright, working with GDOT, were able to obtain federal economic stimulus funds for the construction of this project. In fact, aside from some resurfacing on interstate highways, this was the first project in the state that GDOT approved for construction using the federal economic stimulus funds. And I know we've all suffered through the delays on Highway 5. You always have that in a major construction project. Had a couple of snafus, as you know, where we had gridlock, but thankfully now project's virtually completed, and I think we all see the value of having this new project in operation. Well, now there's only one project left to be number one. You've probably already figured out what it is. That, of course, is the construction of the city's new public safety municipal court building. It's the largest construction project ever undertaken by the city government. And as you travel Highway 92, Fairburn Road, from time to time, I'm sure you've seen this large, stately building. It's a two-story building, actually 3 stories with the basement level. Got a nice monument sign out front that announces this as being Douglasville Public Safety and Municipal Court. Groundbreaking ceremonies were held on December the 1st of 2009. New South Construction Company delivered this building to the city within the specified time frame and under budget. Funding had been assured, of course, by the Douglasville voters through the issuance of general obligation bonds, which were approved, $23 million 20-year GO bond issue back in September 16, 2008. Basically, we completed construction by the end of 2010, but we didn't do the ribbon cutting and the grand opening until January the 27th of 2011. Still had a few details to be worked out before the actual move-in would occur during the early part of February. Now, I believe that this facility we will find is going to be of great value to the city. It's on the west side of Fairburn Road, a little short distance south of I-20. 3-story building, 70,000 square feet. We also have an adjacent building of 18,000 square feet. Should provide sufficient space for the police department and municipal court for the next 25 years. On the basement level of our main building is training facilities, physical fitness facilities, crime scene evidence units, SWAT, and special operations. On the ground level of the patrol division, the records division, municipal court. On the top floor, detective division, our administrative offices, and about 3,500 square feet of vacant space to accommodate future growth. In the auxiliary building, we have training meeting space on the ground level, and then a fully equipped firing range in the basement. Also on this 20-acre site, we have sufficient parking for our employees and the public, as well as K-9 unit facilities, vehicle maintenance, and storage. Now, all during 2010, and of course for many years prior to that, we were housed in several buildings in the downtown area, and these the city had bought for the police department, converting from their former space, so they really were not adequate for police department functions. And because we were spread out, there were times the public didn't know which building they needed to visit, and even if they chose the right building, they might still have to go to another building, and this was especially bothersome during inclement weather. But now gone were the wind of the times that the public will be faced with which building do I go to. Got one place to go now, plenty of parking, and so I think our citizens will certainly enjoy this new situation as they have to go to the police department. And needless to say, Chief Womack, Deputy Chief Sparks, all their officers and the department's civilian population, civilian employees are delighted to be moving into this new, larger, better equipped work environment. The same was true, of course, for Municipal Judge Keith Rollins and our court staff. Now, we didn't abandon downtown when we did this move. We had announced before the GO bond issue vote back in 2008 that we would maintain a presence in the downtown area, and we're doing this. We're renovating the old police station. Until that's done, we'll have a downtown precinct in what had been the police administration building, but we will maintain a presence in the downtown area. Thank you for watching this edition of On the Agenda. This is City Manager Bill Osborne. I hope your review of these events from 2010 with me has brought back some pleasant memories. You have a great day, and join me the next time for another edition of On the Agenda.